The cubs dreamed safely beneath the stars of Yuang. Because humans were guarding them, Part 1. The stars looked different from the bridge of the Sentinel's watch. Captain Derek Hayes stood at the main viewport, his coffee growing cold in his hands. 20 years in the military had taught him many things, but nothing had prepared him for this assignment. "Captain, we're approaching Valara Prime," Lieutenant Maya Brooks said from the tactical station. Her fingers moved across the holographic display with practiced ease. "The Concordat is hailing us." Derek nodded and turned toward the communication screen. An alien face appeared, tall and thin with silver skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. This was Ambassador Torin, one of the Concordat Council members who had welcomed humanity into their alliance 6 months ago. "Captain Hayes, welcome to the Valara system," Torin said, his translator device making his words sound pleasant and warm. "We are pleased that Earth has sent such an experienced officer to watch over our nursery world." "Thank you, Ambassador," Derek replied. "My crew and I are honored to serve." The conversation was polite and brief. Torin explained that guard duty at Valara Prime was mostly ceremonial. The Concordat had enjoyed 10,000 years of peace. No one attacked nursery worlds anymore. Those dark times were ancient history, forgotten by most species. Derek should consider this a relaxing post, a reward for his years of service. When the communication ended, Maya raised an eyebrow. "Ceremonial duty? They brought us halfway across known space for ceremonial duty." Derek smiled slightly. "Apparently so. Take us into orbit, Lieutenant. Let's see what we're protecting." As the Sentinel's watch moved closer to Valara Prime, the planet revealed itself in all its beauty. Vast forests covered most of the continents, their leaves showing colors that ranged from deep purple to bright orange. Crystal-clear oceans reflected the system's twin suns, and scattered across the surface were the nursery habitats, dome-shaped structures that glowed softly in the evening light. Dr. Peter Grant arrived on the bridge, his tablet clutched in his hands. The xenobiologist looked excited, his eyes bright with curiosity. "Captain, I've been reading about the Valari. They're fascinating creatures. The youngest sentient species in the Concordat. They only developed basic tool use about 50 years ago." "What are they like?" Derek asked. "Small, about the size of house cats. Hexapedal, which means 6 legs. Covered in soft fur that changes color with their emotions. Large eyes adapted for their planet's low light conditions." Peter scrolled through images on his tablet. "And they're social creatures. They sleep in communal nests all together, dreaming beneath their stars." Maya looked up from her station. "Sounds cute." "How many are down there?" "About 50,000 cubs in this habitat alone," Peter said. "This is where they grow and learn until they're old enough to join adult Valari society. It takes about 10 years. Derek stared at the planet below. 50,000 young, vulnerable creatures. The responsibility felt heavy on his shoulders, even if the Concordat claimed there was no real danger. "Permission to take a shuttle down?" Peter asked. "I'd like to begin my research and meet our charges." "Granted," Derek said. "Maya, you go with him. I want a tactical assessment of the surface installations." The 2 officers left the bridge and Derek returned to his viewport. Something felt wrong. He couldn't explain it, couldn't put it into words, but his instincts were screaming at him. 20 years of combat experience had taught him to trust those instincts. Commander Jack Stone, the chief engineer, appeared beside him. "Penny for your thoughts, Captain?" "I don't like this, Jack," Derek said quietly. 10,000 years of peace? Nothing threatens nursery worlds anymore. It sounds too good to be true." "Usually is," Jack agreed. "I've been looking at the Concordat's defense systems. They're pathetic. Scientific sensors, yes. Weapons, barely any. If something did attack, they couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. And we're the only military vessel in the system?" "The only one within 3 light years," Jack confirmed. "The Concordat doesn't believe in maintaining standing fleets. They say it's a waste of resources." Derek's jaw tightened. "Run a full diagnostic on our weapon systems. I want everything at peak efficiency." "Already started, Captain." Down on the planet's surface, Maya and Peter walked through the main nursery habitat. The interior was beautiful, designed to mimic the Valari homeworld. Trees grew in careful patterns, their branches creating a canopy overhead. Soft moss covered the ground and small streams bubbled through the landscape. And everywhere, there were cubs. The Valari young played and tumbled over each other, their fur flashing with colors that Peter explained indicated joy and excitement. They were indeed about the size of cats. With 6 legs that made them incredibly agile, their large eyes watched the humans with curious intelligence. One cub approached Peter cautiously. Its fur was currently a soft blue color. The xenobiologist knelt down slowly, holding out his hand. The cub sniffed his fingers, then made a sound like a musical chirp. Its fur turned bright yellow. "He likes you," one of the concordate caretakers said. She was from a different species, with feathers instead of skin. "That one is particularly brave. We call him Starlight." Peter smiled as the cub climbed into his lap. "Hello, Starlight. I'm Peter." Maya, meanwhile, was examining the habitat's defenses. What she found worried her. The shields were designed to protect against weather, not weapons. There were no defensive positions, no reinforced structures, no evacuation protocols for emergencies. If something attacked, the cubs would be completely defenseless. She tapped her communicator. "Captain, we have a problem." Back on the Sentinel's watch, Derek listened to Maya's report with growing concern. His tactical officer painted a grim picture. The nursery world was completely undefended. The Concordate had grown so comfortable in their long peace that they had forgotten how to protect themselves. "Return to the ship," Derek ordered. "We need to review our own defensive positions." That evening, Derek called a meeting of his senior staff. Maya presented her findings about the planet's vulnerabilities. Jack reported on the ship's weapons status, which was excellent but limited. They were one destroyer against a whole system to protect. Peter showed images of the Volari cubs explaining how helpless they truly were. "I want round-the-clock sensor sweeps," Derek decided. "Full spectrum, beyond standard concordate parameters." "Maya, work up defensive positions for the ship." "Jack, I want contingency plans for everything from solar flares to hostile incursions." "Peter, map every nursery habitat on the planet. If we need to evacuate, I want to know exactly where every cub is located." His officers nodded and left to carry out their orders. Ambassador Kira Voss, humanity's diplomatic liaison to the Concordate, remained behind. "The Concordate won't like this," she warned. "They'll think we're being paranoid." "Maybe we are," Derek admitted. "But those cubs down there deserve protection. Real protection, not ceremonial guards who assume nothing bad can happen." "You really think something might attack?" Kira asked. Derek looked at the tactical display at the vast empty space beyond their sensor range. "I think 10,000 years is a long time to go without something bad happening. I think peace makes people forget that evil doesn't die, it just waits. And I think those little ones down there are depending on us to be ready if I'm right." 3 days later, the sensors detected something at the edge of the system. "Just a ghost," the Concordate technician said. "Probably a comet or debris. Nothing to worry about." But Derek Hayes stood on his bridge, staring at that faint contact on his display, and his instincts screamed that everything was about to change. In their habitat far below, the Volari cubs settled into their communal nests as their twin suns set, ready to dream safely beneath their stars. They didn't know that humans were watching over them. They didn't know that Captain Derek Hayes had just made a silent promise to protect them, no matter what came out of the darkness between the stars. The peaceful days at Volara Prime were about to end. The cubs dreamed safely beneath the stars, because humans were guarding them. Part 2. The sensor ghost became real on the 6th day. Maya Brooks stood at her tactical station, her face pale as the data streams resolved into something solid. "Captain, contact confirmed. Multiple vessels entering the system, bearing 273 Mark V. Derek moved to stand beside her, his eyes scanning the display. "How many?" "Counting now, 15, 20, 30 contacts and still climbing." Maya's fingers flew across her controls. "They're not broadcasting identification codes. Not responding to hails." "Battle stations," Derek ordered, his voice calm despite the ice in his stomach. Alarms blared throughout the Sentinel's watch. His crew moved to their positions with practiced efficiency. "Get me the Concordate Council." Ambassador Torin appeared on the screen looking confused. "Captain Hayes? What is the meaning of this alert? You're frightening the cubs." "We have 30-plus unidentified vessels entering the system," Derek said. "I need every Concordate ship ready for possible hostile action." Torin made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. "Captain, you must be mistaken. No one attacks nursery worlds. Perhaps your sensors need calibration." "My sensors are fine," Derek said, fighting to keep his patience. "I'm sending you the data now." He watched Torrens' expression change as the Concordat leader reviewed the information. The alien silver skin lost some of its shimmer. This must be a merchant convoy that forgot to file their flight plans. I will contact them and resolve this misunderstanding. The screen went dark before Derek could respond. He turned to Maya. Thoughts? He's in denial, she said bluntly. 43 contacts now, Captain. They're in formation, military formation, and they're heading straight for Valara Prime. Get me Ambassador Voss and send a message to Earth. We might need backup. Kira Voss arrived on the bridge within minutes. The human diplomat looked worried. The Concordat won't mobilize, Derek. I've been talking to their council members. They keep insisting this is a misunderstanding. What about their historical records? Derek asked. You've been researching. What did you find? Kira pulled up a holographic display. Ancient text scrolled across the air between them. There are references to something called the Devourers, a predatory species that hunted young civilizations. They attacked nursery worlds, harvesting species before they could develop enough to defend themselves. But the last attack was over 10,000 years ago. The Concordat assumed they were extinct. Assumed, Maya said darkly. 50 contacts now, Captain. Derek's communicator chirped. It was Peter Grant calling from the planet's surface. Captain, the Concordat caretakers are starting to evacuate. They say it's just a precaution, but they're scared. What's happening? We're not sure yet, Peter. How long to evacuate all the cubs? There was a pause. With the ships they have? Days, maybe a week. There are 50,000 cubs in this habitat alone, and 3 other habitats on the planet. Captain, there aren't enough ships. Derek closed his eyes briefly. Understood. Stand by. The waiting was the hardest part. For 6 hours, the unknown fleet approached while the Concordat Council argued among themselves. Some wanted to flee. Others insisted on trying to communicate. None wanted to fight because they had forgotten how. Finally, a message came through, not from the Concordat, but from the approaching fleet. The face that appeared on Derek's screen made his blood run cold. It was reptilian, covered in scales that seemed to absorb light. Its eyes were black and empty. When it spoke, the words came out in a hiss that the translator struggled to process. Valara Prime, nursery world, young ones ready for harvest. Surrender them or be destroyed. The screen went black. Captain, Maya said, her voice tight. I'm reading weapons charging on all 50 vessels. They're preparing to attack. Derek looked around his bridge. His crew stared back at him, waiting for orders. Outside, he could see the Concordat ships beginning to scatter, running for the edge of the system. No one was staying to fight. No one except the Sentinels watch. Maya, how do we look? He asked. 1 destroyer against 50 warships? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and probably outmatched in technology. If we stay and fight, we'll die. If we run, we might survive. Jack, Derek said to his engineer over the communicator. How long can we hold? Depends on what you mean by hold. Jack's voice came back. If you want to win, impossible. If you want to delay them, maybe a few hours if we're lucky and smart. Peter, Derek said, how many cubs have been evacuated? Maybe 2,000. Peter's voice sounded broken. Captain, there are still 48,000 cubs down here. They're sleeping in their nests right now, dreaming their dreams. They don't understand what's coming. Derek thought about those cubs, small creatures with soft fur and large eyes, young ones who had never hurt anyone, who played and chirped and changed colors with their emotions. Cubs who deserved to grow up, to have futures, to live. He thought about what humanity stood for, about the values Earth had taught its children, about the promise that the strong should protect the weak, not prey upon them. We stay, he said quietly. The bridge was silent for a moment. Then Kira spoke up. Derek, if you stay, you'll die. All of you. 1 ship can't stop 50. I know, Derek said. But those cubs are depending on us. Someone has to buy time for more evacuations. Someone has to stand between them and the Devourers. It might as well be us. We could run, Maya said. Contact Earth. Come back with a fleet. By the time a fleet arrives, those cubs will be gone, Derek replied. Harvested, the Devourers said. I don't want to know what that means, and I won't let it happen. He turned to face his crew. Every eye was on him. I won't order you to stay. Anyone who wants to take a shuttle and evacuate has my permission. No judgment, no shame. This isn't your fight if you don't want it to be. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Maya straightened at her station. I stay, Captain. Someone needs to work tactical. I stay. Jack's voice came over the communicator. Someone needs to keep the guns firing. One by one, every member of his crew chose to stay. They were human. They were warriors. And they were guardians. Derek felt pride swell in his chest. Then we hold the line. We don't leave them. Understood? Understood, sir, they replied as one. He opened a channel to Peter on the planet. Dr. Grant, take the cubs to the deepest shelters you can find. Keep them safe and keep them calm. We'll handle things up here. How? Peter asked. Derek, how can you possibly stop them? Derek looked at the approaching fleet of 50 warships. He thought about the odds, about the mathematics of combat, about the cold calculations that said this was impossible. Then he thought about small cubs sleeping in their nests, dreaming safely beneath the stars. We're human, he said simply. We protect the young. We stand between the darkness and the innocent. Not because we expect reward, not because we seek glory, but because if we don't, who will? He closed the channel and turned to Maya. Battle stations. Deploy all weapons. Route all available power to shields and guns. Send a message to the Devourers. What should it say? Maya asked. Derek smiled grimly. Tell them that this nursery world is under human protection. If they want those cubs, they'll have to go through us first. The message was sent. The Devourers responded by accelerating their attack run. 50 warships against 1 destroyer. The mathematics said it was impossible. But the Devourers were about to learn that humans had never been very good at accepting impossible as an answer. Especially when children needed protecting. The battle for Valara Prime was about to begin. The cubs dreamed safely beneath the stars, because humans were guarding them. Part 3. The first wave hit like a hammer. The Sentinel's watch shook as plasma bolts slammed into her shields. Maya's fingers danced across her console, redirecting power and returning fire. Shields at 80%. Targeting lead ship. Fire all forward batteries, Derek ordered from his captain's chair. He gripped the armrests as the ship lurched beneath him. The human destroyer's railguns spoke, sending hypersonic projectiles screaming across space. One of the Devourer ships exploded in a bloom of fire. The aliens had expected an easy fight. They had not expected humans to hit back so hard. Excellent shot, Derek said. Again. Captain, they're splitting into attack groups, Maya reported. 3 ships flanking left, 3 right, the rest coming straight at us. Derek's mind raced. They couldn't fight in all directions at once. But they didn't need to win. They just needed to survive. Roll the ship. Present our dorsal armor to the flanking groups. All weapons on the main force. The Sentinel's watch spun, its heavily armored back now facing the flanking attackers. The maneuver was aggressive and unexpected. The Devourers hesitated for just a moment, confused by a prey that fought back so fiercely. That moment was all Maya needed. Her missiles launched, streaking across space to find their targets. 2 more Devourer ships died in fire and shrapnel. Yes, Ensign Kate Morgan shouted from communications before remembering herself. Sorry, sir. Don't apologize for celebrating dead enemies, Derek said. Jack, damage report. Port shields are buckling, the engineer's voice came through. I'm rerouting power from life support. We can breathe recycled air for a while. Do it, Derek said. Maya, how many ships have we destroyed? 5 confirmed kills, she said. But Captain, they're adapting. They've stopped charging in blindly. They're forming a sphere around us. Derek saw it on the tactical display. The Devourers were surrounding them, creating a cage of firepower. Smart, effective, and very, very dangerous. Time for something stupid, Derek muttered. Maya, plot a course straight toward the planet. Full speed. Sir, that will take us through their formation. Exactly. They won't expect us to charge them. We'll break through before they can react, and then we'll have the planet at our backs. Forces them to attack from one direction. Maya grinned fiercely. Aye, sir. Plotting course. The Sentinel's watch accelerated, driving straight toward the enemy formation like a spear. The Devourers scrambled to adjust, their ships trying to concentrate fire. But the human destroyer was faster than they expected, more maneuverable, more aggressive. They punched through the enemy line, railguns blazing. Another Devourer ship exploded, then another. The human vessel took hits, shields flickering and dying in sections, but she kept moving. We're through, Maya announced. Taking up position over the planet. Shields? Derek asked. 40% and holding, Jack reported. But Captain, we can't take many more hits like that. Derek knew it. He knew the mathematics of war. 6 enemy ships destroyed, 44 remaining. 1 human destroyer with failing shields and limited ammunition. The numbers said they should be dead already. But the Cubs were still alive. Still sleeping in their shelters. Still dreaming. Then we make every hit count, Derek said. Maya, activate close defense protocols. Let's see how good they are at knife fighting range. The battle continued. Hours passed in a blur of weapons fire and desperate maneuvers. The Sentinel's watch danced through space, her captain pushing her beyond her design limits. Derek fought like he had never fought before, using every trick he had learned in 20 years of military service. The Devourers attacked in waves, testing different approaches. Each time, the humans adapted. When the enemy tried to overwhelm them with numbers, Maya targeted their command ships, throwing the attacks into chaos. When they tried long-range bombardment, Derek closed the distance, forcing close combat where human reflexes and aggression gave them an edge. Pilot Officer Ryan Cooper launched in his fighter, the only one the Sentinel's watch carried. The young pilot flew like a madman, drawing fire and leading enemy ships into ambushes. He destroyed 3 Devourer vessels before his fighter took a hit that sent him spinning back to the destroyer's small hangar. Sergeant Lisa Murphy and her Marines prepared for boarding actions. The Devourers tried twice to send boarding parties across. Both times, Lisa's team met them in the corridors with plasma rifles and determination. The aliens retreated after encountering the ferocity of human soldiers fighting to protect young ones. 72 hours into the battle, Derek stood on his bridge, exhausted beyond measure. He had not slept since the fighting began. None of them had. His uniform was stained with sweat and blood from a head wound he barely remembered receiving. Status, he croaked, his voice raw from shouting orders. Shields at 15%, Jack reported. His voice sounded as tired as Derek felt. Weapons at 40% efficiency. We're running on fumes and prayers, Captain. Enemy count. 31 ships remaining, Maya said. She looked like she might collapse at her station. But they're not retreating. They're regrouping for another assault. Derek looked at his crew. They were exhausted, wounded, running on pure willpower. But not one of them had given up. Not one had suggested retreat. Kate, he said to the communications officer, open a channel, all frequencies. I want everyone to hear this. The Devourers, the Concord at Earth if the signal reaches that far. Channel open, sir, Kate said. Derek straightened in his chair. This is Captain Derek Hayes of the Earth Destroyer Sentinel's watch. To the Devourers, you came here to harvest innocent young ones. You came expecting easy prey. Instead, you found us. We are humans. We protect the young. We stand between the darkness and the innocent. Not because we expect reward, not because we seek glory, but because if we don't, who will? He paused, looking at his tactical display where 31 enemy ships were preparing for another attack. You want those cubs? You'll have to go through us first, and we won't stop fighting. Not while we draw breath. Not while there's power in our guns. Not while there's one cub left to protect. You want to know what humans are? We're the species that doesn't know when to quit. We're the ones who fight against impossible odds because someone has to. We're the guardians who will die before we abandon our watch. He closed the channel. Maya looked at him with something like awe. That was one hell of a speech, Captain. It was the truth, Derek said simply. How long until they attack again? 10 minutes, Maya estimated. Then we have 10 minutes to rest, Derek said. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. Jack, give me everything you've got left. Maya, target their flagships. If we're going down, we're taking as many of them with us as possible. Down on the planet, Peter Grant sat with Starlight in his lap. The young Valari cub was scared, his fur flickering between dark colors. Peter could hear the distant thunder of weapons fire in the upper atmosphere. It's okay, Peter whispered, stroking the cub's soft fur. Captain Hayes is up there. The humans are protecting you. You're safe, Starlight chirped softly, his large eyes trusting. Around them, thousands of other cubs huddled in their shelters, protected by force fields and layers of rock. They were alive because humans were dying in space above them. Peter activated his communicator. Derek, are you still there? Still here, Peter. Derek's tired voice came back. How are the cubs? Scared but safe. Thanks to you. That's all that matters, Derek said. When Earth asks what happened here, tell them we did our duty. We protected the innocent. We held the line. You're not dead yet. Peter said, tears in his eyes. Not yet, Derek agreed. But Peter, if things go wrong, make sure those cubs know. Make sure they understand that humans cared enough to die for them. The communication ended. Peter held Starlight close and watched the sky through a viewing port. Distant flashes marked where the Sentinel's watch was still fighting, still holding, still refusing to surrender. The battle raged on. The human destroyer was failing, her shields nearly gone, her weapons stuttering. But she stayed between the Devourers and the planet. She stayed between predators and prey. She stayed because Captain Derek Hayes and his crew were human. And humans protected cubs, even if it meant dying in the attempt. Above Valara Prime, as 48,000 cubs slept in their shelters, the Sentinel's watch fought on against impossible odds. Her shields failed. Her armor breached. Her systems died one by one. But she did not break position. She did not retreat. And the cubs continued to dream, safely beneath their stars, because humans were guarding them. The cubs dreamed safely beneath the stars, Tobwo, because humans were guarding them. Part 4. The message reached Earth 4 days after the battle began. Admiral Frank Collins stood in the command center, watching the recording that Captain Derek Hayes had sent. The transmission was broken and corrupted by distance, but the message was clear. 1 human destroyer, 50 enemy ships, thousands of alien cubs who needed protection. How old is this message? Frank asked. 4 days, sir, his aide replied. Given the transmission delays and the intensity of the fighting, the Sentinel's watch might already be... Don't say it, Frank interrupted. Get me the 2nd Fleet, every ship that can move I want ready to go in 1 hour. Contact the other human colonies. Tell them we need reinforcements at Valara Prime. Maximum speed. Sir, even at top speed, it will take us 6 days to reach the Valara system. Frank stared at the frozen image of Derek Hayes on the screen. The captain looked determined, ready to die for creatures he had met only days before. Then we better hope Captain Hayes can hold for 6 more days. Move! The 2nd Fleet mobilized with incredible speed. 12 warships, 3 carriers, and supply vessels jumped to hyperspace within 90 minutes. But Frank knew it might not be enough. Even if they arrived in time, Derek and his crew might already be gone. On the colony world of New Boston, a freighter captain named Greg Palmer watched the same message. He owned a small cargo ship, nothing special. But when he heard about the cubs and the lone human destroyer trying to protect them, he made a decision. Load emergency supplies, he told his crew. Medical equipment, food, whatever we can spare. We're going to Valara Prime. Greg, we're not a warship, his first mate protested. What can we do? We can evacuate cubs, Greg said firmly. That destroyer is buying time. The least we can do is use it wisely. Within hours, dozens of civilian ships were moving toward Valara. Freighters, passenger liners, mining vessels, anything that could carry passengers. The human colonies had heard about the battle, and they were responding with everything they had. Back at Valara Prime, the Sentinel's watch was dying. Derek barely registered the alarms anymore. There were too many of them, screaming about systems failing and hull breaches and casualties. His ship had taken damage that should have destroyed her 10 times over. But she was still there, still firing, still protecting the planet below. Shields completely gone, Jack reported. His voice was calm despite the crisis. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. We've lost the port missile batteries. Starboard railgun is offline. How many guns do we have left? Derek asked. 2 railguns and 1 missile launcher. Captain, we're running out of ammunition. Derek looked at his tactical display. 28 enemy ships remained. The Sentinel's watch had destroyed 22 Devourer vessels, but the cost had been terrible. His crew was exhausted, his ship was broken, and the enemy was preparing for another attack. Maya, he said quietly, when we run out of ammunition, what do we have left? She understood immediately. You want to ram them? If it comes to that, yes. 1 more ship destroyed is 1 less threatening the cubs. Before Maya could respond, Kate suddenly shouted from communications. Captain, new contact entering the system. It's human. IFF identifies her as the destroyer Defiance Edge. Derek's head snapped up. What? On the tactical display, a new blue marker appeared. A human destroyer, fresh and undamaged, dropping out of hyperspace right into the middle of the battle. Her weapons came online immediately, targeting the nearest Devourer ships. Sentinel's watch, "This is Captain Nicole Wright of the Defiance Edge," a voice came over the communication system. "Sorry we're late to the party. Thought you might need a hand." Derek felt something he had not felt in days. Hope. "Captain Wright, you are the most beautiful sight I've ever seen. Welcome to Valara Prime." "Happy to be here," Nicole replied. Her ship's missiles launched, destroying 2 Devourer vessels in quick succession. "Just hold on a little longer. We've got more help coming." And she was right. Over the next 2 hours, more human ships arrived. Destroyers and frigates from nearby colonies, arriving one by one or in small groups. Each new arrival shifted the balance of the battle a little more. The Devourers, who had been so confident when they outnumbered the humans 50-1, suddenly found themselves facing an enemy who wouldn't quit. Every time they destroyed one human ship, 2 more seemed to arrive. Every time they thought victory was close, another wave of reinforcements appeared. Greg Palmer's freighter arrived with 20 others like it. They couldn't fight, but they could help evacuate. Under the protection of the warships, the civilian vessels descended to Valara Prime and began loading cubs. Thousands of young Valari were lifted to safety while the battle raged overhead. Peter Grant coordinated the evacuation from the surface. He watched as Starlight and hundreds of other cubs were carried aboard the freighters, their fur showing frightened colors but their large eyes trusting. The cubs were scared, but they understood somehow that these strange tall beings were helping them. "Dr. Grant," one of the freighter captains called. "We're at capacity. Where should we take them?" "Jump to the nearest Concordat station," Peter instructed. "Keep them safe. That's what matters." On the 6th day, Admiral Frank Collins arrived with the Second Fleet. 12 modern warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their weapons already locked on enemy targets. The Devourers, who had started this battle with 50 ships, now faced a human fleet that outnumbered them. "This is Admiral Collins of the Earth's Second Fleet," Frank's voice boomed across all frequencies. "To the Devourers, you made a mistake. You thought you could harvest young ones under human protection. You thought one ship would be easy to destroy. You were wrong on both counts. I'm giving you one chance to retreat. Take it, or we'll destroy every last one of your vessels." The Devourers tried to fight. They were predators, after all. But predators hunt the weak, and humans were not weak. The battle that followed was brief and brutal. The combined human fleet, fresh and coordinated, tore through the exhausted Devourer forces. Enemy ships exploded or fled. Within 2 hours, the Valara system was clear. Derek Hayes sat in his captain's chair, barely believing it was over. His hands were shaking with exhaustion and relief. "Captain," Kate said softly, "Admiral Collins is hailing us." Frank's face appeared on the screen. The Admiral looked at the damaged destroyer, at the exhausted crew, and his expression softened. "Captain Hayes, you and your people did good. Real good." "Thank you, sir," Derek managed to say. "The cubs?" "All accounted for. Your evacuations worked. 48,000 cubs safe and being transported to secure locations. You saved them all." Derek closed his eyes. They had done it. Against impossible odds, against overwhelming force, they had protected the cubs. "What were our casualties, sir?" "The Sentinel's watch lost 32 crew members," Frank said gently. 40 more wounded. Your ship will need months of repairs, maybe longer. But Derek, you held them off. 1 destroyer against 50 warships, and you held the line until help arrived. The whole galaxy is watching the recordings. You've become heroes. "We were just doing our duty," Derek said. "Protecting those who can't protect themselves." "That's what makes you heroes," Frank replied. "Get some rest, Captain." "You've earned it." The communication ended. Derek looked around his bridge at his surviving crew. Maya was slumped over her console, finally letting herself relax. Jack's voice came through the speakers, reporting successful containment of the last hull breach. Kate was sending messages to families of the fallen. "Captain," Maya said quietly, "permission to say something?" "Granted. I'm proud to serve with you, sir. Proud to be human today." Derek smiled tiredly. "The feeling is mutual, Lieutenant. The feeling is very mutual." Down on Valara Prime, Peter Grant stood with the Concordat caretakers, watching the last of the evacuation ships lift off. Starlight was already safely aboard a freighter, on his way to temporary shelter. The young cub would live. They all would live because humans had stood guard, because Captain Derek Hayes and his crew had refused to abandon their post, because when faced with impossible odds, humanity had responded not with retreat but with reinforcement. The Devourers had learned a hard lesson that day. The galaxy had learned something too. When humans protect something, they don't do it halfway. They commit, they sacrifice, they endure, and they never, ever leave cubs undefended. The battle for Valara Prime was over. The cubs were safe, and humanity had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to be a guardian. The cubs dreamed safely beneath the stars, Ridiru, because humans were guarding them. Part 5. 3 months had passed since the battle. The Sentinel's watch hung in orbital dock above Earth, her hull still scarred from combat but no longer broken. Repair crews swarmed over her like ants, welding new armor plates and installing upgraded systems. She would fly again, stronger than before. Captain Derek Hayes, now Commodore Hayes after his promotion, stood in the observation lounge watching the work. His head wound had healed, leaving a thin scar that he wore without shame. Scars were proof of survival, his old instructor had once told him. "She's going to be beautiful when they're done," a voice said behind him. Derek turned to see Maya Brooks, now Captain Brooks after receiving her own command. She wore a new uniform, crisp and clean, with captain's insignia on her collar. She would soon take command of a new vessel, the Guardian's Promise, specifically designed to protect nursery worlds. "Congratulations on your promotion," Derek said, shaking her hand. "You earned it." "We all earned it," Maya replied. The whole crew, those of us who survived anyway. They stood in silence for a moment, thinking of the 32 crew members who had died protecting Valara Prime. Their names were now inscribed on a memorial in the ship's main corridor. Heroes, every one of them. "Have you heard from Peter?" Maya asked. Derek nodded. "He's still on Valara Prime running the new research station. He sends reports every week. The cubs are thriving, and Starlight? Growing bigger every day, apparently. Peter says the cub recognizes him instantly now. His fur turns bright yellow whenever Peter visits." Maya smiled. "Joy color, right?" "Right," Derek confirmed. "Peter also says the Valari are developing faster than expected. Trauma can do that, push species to mature quicker, but they're doing well considering everything they went through." The door opened and Admiral Frank Collins entered, followed by Ambassador Kira Voss. Both wore formal dress uniforms. Today was an important day. "Commodore Hayes, Captain Brooks," Frank greeted them. "Ready for the ceremony?" "As ready as we'll ever be," Derek said. The ceremony took place on the Concordat Central Station, a massive structure that served as the government center for dozens of species. The main council chamber was packed with representatives from across known space. Everyone wanted to witness this moment. Derek and his surviving crew stood in formation, wearing their dress uniforms. Some still showed signs of their injuries. Sergeant Lisa Murphy leaned slightly on a cane, her leg still healing from the boarding action. Commander Jack Stone had lost 2 fingers on his left hand, but refused to get prosthetics until after the ceremony. The Concordat Council entered, led by Ambassador Torin. The silver-skinned alien looked different now, less certain, more humble. The battle had changed him, changed all of them. "Captain Derek Hayes," Torin began, his voice carrying across the chamber. "You and your crew answered a call to protect one of our nursery worlds. You faced an enemy that outnumbered you. You fought against impossible odds. By every logical calculation, you should have failed. You should have died." Torin paused, letting the words sink in. "But you did not fail. You did not die. You held your position for 6 days against 50 enemy warships. You destroyed 22 enemy vessels. You protected 48,000 Valari cubs without losing a single one. And when reinforcements arrived, you had taught the galaxy a lesson we had forgotten." The Concordat leader stepped forward, holding a crystal medallion. "We forgot what it means to be guardians. We forgot that peace requires vigilance. We forgot that the young need protectors who will stand firm against any threat. You reminded us. You showed us what true guardianship looks like." He placed the medallion around Derek's neck. "On behalf of the Galactic Concordat and the Valari people, we thank you. You and your crew are hereby named Guardians of the First Order. Your sacrifice will never be forgotten." The chamber erupted in applause. Species that had never clapped before copied the human gesture, filling the air with sound. Derek stood at attention, accepting the honor not for himself but for his crew, living and dead. But the ceremony was not over. Torin raised his hand for silence. "The Concordat Council has made additional decisions," he announced. "First, we are establishing Guardian fleets for all nursery worlds. These fleets will be trained and organized by human officers, using human defensive doctrine. Never again will our young ones be left vulnerable. More applause. Derek caught Maya's eye and saw her grin. She would be one of those training officers, teaching other species how to fight and protect. Second, Torin continued, we are rebuilding the Sentinel's Watch as a memorial vessel and training ship. She will carry the names of the fallen on her hull, and every Guardian fleet officer will train aboard her, learning the story of the battle and the sacrifice made here. Derek felt his throat tighten. His ship, his crew, their story would live on. Future Guardians would learn from what they had done. Finally, Torin said, humanity is granted full council status within the Concordat. You will help guide our defense policies and protect our most vulnerable members. We trust you with this responsibility because you have proven you understand what it means to protect the innocent. The chamber erupted in applause again. Kiravos stepped forward to accept the honor on behalf of Earth. Derek saw tears in her eyes. Humanity had joined the galactic community not as conquerors or explorers, but as protectors. It was a role they would wear with pride. After the ceremony, Derek took a shuttle to Valara Prime. He needed to see the world he had fought for, needed to know that his sacrifice had been worth it. Peter Grant met him at the landing pad. The xenobiologist looked healthier now, his face less haunted by the memories of the battle. Derek, it's good to see you. They embraced briefly, then Peter led him through the nursery habitat. The dome had been repaired and expanded. New shelters had been built, stronger ones that could withstand attacks. But the habitat still maintained its beauty, with trees and streams and open spaces for the cubs to play, and there were cubs everywhere. The Valari young tumbled over each other, their fur flashing with bright colors. They had grown since Derek last saw them, bigger and more confident. When they saw Peter, many came running, chirping with excitement. One cub in particular rushed forward, his fur turning brilliant yellow. Starlight had grown significantly, almost twice the size he had been during the battle, but his large eyes were still the same, still trusting and curious. Starlight, this is Captain Hayes, Peter said, kneeling down. He's the one who protected you from up there. He pointed toward the sky. The cub looked at Derek, studying him carefully. Then Starlight approached slowly, sniffing Derek's offered hand. His fur flickered through several colors before settling on a warm golden shade. The cub made a sound, a chirp that seemed to carry meaning. What did he say? Derek asked. Peter smiled. The Valari are developing language faster than we expected. That sound means safe. He's saying you make him feel safe. Derek felt something break inside him, all the tension and stress from the battle finally releasing. He had killed enemy ships and lost crew members. He had pushed himself to the breaking point and beyond. He had done terrible things in the name of protection. But this cub, this innocent young creature, felt safe because of him. It made everything worth it. More cubs approached, cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. They surrounded Derek and Peter, their fur showing happy colors. They chirped and played, unafraid, unburdened by the knowledge of what had nearly happened to them. They're thriving, Peter said. All of them. The trauma counselors say they're adjusting well. In a few years, they won't even remember the fear. They'll just remember being safe. That's how it should be, Derek said softly. Cubs shouldn't have to remember war. They should only remember dreaming safely beneath the stars. They walked through the habitat, watching the cubs play. Above them, through the transparent dome, Derek could see human warships on patrol. The Guardian fleet was operational now, multiple vessels maintaining constant watch. No devourers would ever threaten this place again. A statue stood at the center of the habitat, recently installed. It showed a human figure in military uniform standing watch over sleeping cubs. The plaque beneath read simply, "They stood between the darkness and the innocent." The Valari Council commissioned it, Peter explained. They wanted the cubs to remember, to understand what was done for them. Derek stared at the statue. It could have been him, could have been any of his crew. In a way, it was all of them. Peter, Derek said quietly, do they understand? Do the cubs know what happened? Peter nodded. The older ones are starting to. They don't understand war or politics or military tactics, but they understand that when something bad came, humans stood between them and the danger. They understand that you cared enough to fight for them, even though you had just met them, and they understand that some humans died so they could live. Will they remember? Derek asked. Forever, Peter promised. The Valari have excellent memories. When these cubs grow up and have their own cubs, they'll tell the story about the humans who guarded them, about the captain who refused to abandon his post, about the crew who fought against impossible odds. Your story will become part of their culture, Derek. You'll be in their history books, their legends, their prayers.